And we're going to bring in billionaire real estate investor and developer Don Peebles, CEO and chairman of the Peebles Corporation with properties in Miami, also San Francisco, New York, LA, and more. Don, is this going to be a big move? I mean, what Robert just outlined, it's largely going to affect Chinese buyers, Russian buyers, as well as Venezuelan buyers. How much of the market do they make in Florida? Well,
I think in South Florida, it's a significant market. Sunny Isles has a very strong Russian demographic. It's been very attractive to foreign nationals, especially Russia. Miami Beach in general has been very attractive to foreign investors. Venezuelans have been a big consumer of real estate in South Florida. And the Chinese influence has grown, and it's become a more attractive market to Chinese buyers. I actually sold a development site to a Chinese developer a couple years ago.
So then let me ask you this. How effective is this law going to be? Because we were chatting earlier before the show. I'm from Vancouver, where a tax was implemented to deter foreign buyers, and there's a lot of unintended consequences. How do you think this will actually play out?
Well, I think it'll hurt people trying to sell their homes. I think it'll slow development down potentially because it'll shrink the buying pool. And I think it's a negative overall impact on the economy. And I think it's another black eye, frankly, to Florida's image because, I mean, this is America. We are a free market system. And if we start trying to navigate and pick, and Governor DeSantis, who elected him and gave him the right to determine who gets to buy real estate in Florida?
But isn't this kind of political theater for him as well? You may not like it as a developer, but he's obviously speaking to a part of the population that does like this kind of move.
Well, I think he's speaking to people outside of his own state. And he's governor first. And I think if you're going to run for president, you got to run based on a record that you've established, not gimmicks. And I think this is going to backfire because there's going to be a lot of backlash on this.
How does this change your calculation, if at all, in Florida, especially South Florida, where you said you're building, buildings and the Chinese are some of your biggest customers? How does that change or not change your outlook and plans?
Well, I think, look, the market's very deep right now. I think that it's cause for caution because things are slowing down, for example, in new development for condominiums, for example, in Miami Beach and Miami. The market is slowing down a bit. So right now, you want to have a bigger buying pool. So it's certainly going to have us pause a little bit. But I'm adamantly opposed to it.
Then is there any pressure you can put on the economy, on DeSantis himself as a developer by publicly saying, look, we're not going to develop if this goes into effect?
Well, I think that other developers, just like me, are expressing concern about it, and it'll affect the economic viability of projects. And ultimately, some development won't get developed and won't get done. Now, the sad reality is he'll be a private citizen, most likely, when that happens, because he's got 3 more years left as governor, and then he's gone. And we're going to be stuck with the ramifications of this ridiculous policy.
Do you think that there's going to be unintended consequences on another group of buyers? I pointed to Vancouver. It didn't actually hurt the wealthy foreign buyers. They were able to find loopholes or just pay the tax. It ended up hurting smaller buyers because of a tax that they couldn't necessarily afford. So what does it do to maybe some of the other groups, and will this have an effect on property prices?
Yeah, I think it'll have an effect on smaller buyers and also smaller sellers of individual properties who want to sell their homes, want to sell their condos, want to sell a commercial property and can't sell it, or it erodes the value. I mean, real estate's a simple business, supply and demand. If you start reducing demand, then prices go down.
So in some cases, foreign buyers are looking, at least in the case of Chinese, to park money somewhere that is outside of China. What are the markets that you think might benefit from this move in Florida? Do they go somewhere else? Oh,
California. I think it's good news for California. Southern California is very good news. San Francisco, it's very good news. Both of those markets need some momentum. And so I think these buyers will say, hey, if you don't want us here, fine, we'll leave. And I think New York benefits, especially from Eastern European buyers.
Okay, well, you mentioned San Francisco, so let's broaden this out a little bit and let's talk about commercial real estate. More people are being called back to the office, of course, and so Castle data still showing activity is only about half of pre-pandemic levels. Low office occupancy rate is among many problems plaguing the sector that has become the focus of investors' worries. Many are predicting a crisis is looming after the end of a decade of cheap borrowing. Don, we see, covers of magazines talking about this crisis in commercial real estate, the effect it could have on regional banks, on the entire economy. Where are you? Is this overblown, or are you worried?
Oh, I think it's a big impact. I mean, commercial real estate has been hit by the 1, 2, and now the 3 punch. The first one was there was a migration down to lower tax states like Florida and Texas, out of LA and New York prior to the pandemic. The pandemic forced everyone to work remotely and liberated people from having to be in offices. And that had a devastating impact, and we're seeing that now